Have you ever experienced someone suddenly going from being completely engaged with you to acting as if you don't exist? One moment, they're talking, laughing, making plans, and the next, it's silence. No calls, no replies, just a void where they used to be. But what if I told you that when someone starts ignoring you, it's not random, it's a conscious decision. They won't offer an explanation. They won't confront you. Instead, they'll vanish, leaving you questioning what went wrong. I'm talking about that kind of distance that feels deeply personal, yet often it's not. Some people disappear because they've gotten what they needed from you. Others withdraw because your progress unsettles them. And some, they were never truly invested in the first place. But here's the truth. You don't need to chase them, plead for answers, or demand closure. Real strength lies in understanding why this happens and choosing not to take it personally. So why do people suddenly cut you off? And what does it actually mean? Stick around because the last reason will shift your entire perspective. Before we dive into the lessons, pay close attention to this story. It holds the key to understanding everything that follows. The story of Ethan. Ethan was the kind of person everyone enjoyed being around, kind, dependable, and always willing to help. But one day, something changed. His messages were met with silence. The friends who once eagerly sought his company became distant. Conversations that were once full of warmth turned cold and strained. At first, he told himself, they're probably just busy. But deep inside, a nagging thought wouldn't let him rest. Why are they ignoring me? Frustrated, Ethan sought advice from his mentor, Mr. Harris, a retired psychologist known for his wisdom. Ethan sighed. Sir, I don't get it. The people who once seemed to value me now act like I don't even exist. What did I do wrong? Mr. Harris gave him a knowing smile and handed him a candle and a match. Light the candle, he instructed. Ethan did as he was told, and soon the flame flickered softly in the dimly lit room. Now, Mr. Harris continued, hold it near this open window. Ethan obeyed, and within seconds, a gust of wind extinguished the flame. Mr. Harris leaned back. That, my boy, is why people ignore you. Ethan furrowed his brow. I don't understand. Mr. Harris chuckled. A small flame can only survive when it's protected, but when it grows too bright, it draws the wind. Ethan sat in thoughtful silence as the realization set in. People don't always ignore you because they dislike you. Sometimes they withdraw because your personal growth makes them uneasy. You were once at their level, predictable, familiar. But when you evolve, improve, and elevate yourself, they begin to feel small in comparison. Instead of rising with you, they distance themselves. That night, Ethan made a decision. He stopped seeking explanations. He stopped shrinking himself to fit in. He stopped feeling guilty for growing while others chose to stay the same. And in that moment, he found peace. Because he realized he wasn't being rejected, he was simply outgrowing them. People don't always ignore you because you've done something wrong. Sometimes they do it because your progress reminds them of their own stagnation. A candle that burns too bright will always stir the wind. So don't dim your light just to stay visible to those who refuse to shine. Before we jump into the first lesson, if you find content like this helpful, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Now, let's begin. 1. They're testing your reaction. Let's talk about a subtle yet manipulative tactic that people use, ignoring you just to see how you'll respond. One moment, they're engaged, attentive, and everything seems fine. The next, they go silent. No replies, no calls, just a sudden cold distance. But here's the thing. It's not always a matter of lost interest. Sometimes it's a calculated test. They want to see if you'll chase after them, They want to gauge how much effort you'll put in. Most importantly, they want to know how much control they have over you. If you start double texting, over-explaining, or asking, "Is something wrong?" they win. You've just confirmed that their absence affects you. And once they know that, they hold the upper hand. Imagine a game of tug-of-war. They drop the rope. They wait. If you pull harder, chasing, pleading, they gain control. But what happens if you don't react? The game ends. That's the power of detachment. If they ignored you as a way to test your reaction and you don't respond the way they expect, you take away their control. And this is where Stoic wisdom comes in. He who needs the least from others is the most powerful. Real strength doesn't come from proving how much you care. It comes from not needing external validation to feel secure. When you stop chasing, stop over-explaining, and stop proving your worth, you become untouchable. A while back, I noticed a strange pattern with someone I considered close. Whenever I got busy focusing on my own goals, they'd suddenly act cold. No replies, no effort. At first, I assumed they were genuinely occupied. But then, I tested something. I didn't chase. No extra texts. No, "Hey, is something wrong?" Just silence. And you know what happened? After a few days, they came back, acting friendly, engaged, as if nothing had happened. That's when I realized they weren't losing interest. They were testing to see if I'd chase. And because I didn't, they lost their power. How to handle this? Recognize the pattern. If someone repeatedly pulls away expecting you to chase, it's not an accident, it's a game. Don't take the bait. If they ignore you for a reaction, give them nothing. Remember your worth. The right people won't play games to measure your devotion. They'll already know. At the end of the day, attention should be mutual, not a test. If someone wants to play games, let them. Just don't play along. That was just the first reason why people ignore you, and there are many more to uncover. Up next, we'll discuss something even more frustrating: when people disappear simply because they no longer benefit from you. But before we continue, if this content resonates with you, show your support by hitting the like button and subscribing. Now, let's dive deeper. 2. They no longer benefit from you. Let's talk about one of the most frustrating experiences when people suddenly start ignoring you. One day they're warm, engaged, and making plans with you. The next, there's silence. No calls, no replies. Just an unfamiliar coldness that wasn't there before. And you find yourself wondering, what did I do wrong? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Some people were never truly there for you. They were there for what you provided. Whether it was your emotional support, your connections, your generosity, or simply the way you made them feel. But the moment they can no longer extract what they need from you, they vanish. Think of it like an electrical outlet. Some people behave like devices plugged into a power source. As long as they're charging, receiving the energy they need from you, they stay connected. But the instant they're fully charged, or find a better outlet, they unplug and walk away. That's why some people disappear without a word. They didn't truly value you. They valued what they could get from you. And this is where ancient wisdom comes in. Epictetus once said, "Attach yourself to what is real, not to those who are temporary." That's the key. Stop tying your worth to people who were only ever meant to be passing through your life. The right people won't disappear when they can no longer extract something from you. They'll stay because they appreciate who you are, not just what you provide. I remember someone who always seemed genuinely interested in me. They were always reaching out, always friendly. But looking back, I noticed a pattern. Every interaction revolved around them. They needed advice, a favor, emotional reassurance. And I gave, because I believed in being there for people. But then, one day, I decided to pull back. Not in a harsh way, just to see if they'd reach out when they didn't need something. Guess what? They disappeared. No more texts, no more calls. That's when I realized they were never truly a friend. I was just a convenience. And the moment I stopped giving, they had no reason to stay. How to handle this? Recognize the signs. If someone only shows up when they need something, pay attention. Stop chasing people who leave. If they disappear the moment you stop providing, let them. Invest in real connections. Authentic relationships aren't based on transactions. They're based on mutual care and respect. At the end of the day, some people will leave the moment they no longer gain anything from you. Don't take it personally. Take it as clarity. Because the people who stay, they're the ones who were meant to. 3. They've been influenced by others. Let's talk about something incredibly frustrating. When someone's behavior toward you shifts, not because of anything you did, but because of what they've been told. One day, they're warm and friendly. The next, distant, cold, indifferent. And you're left wondering, what changed? Here's the truth. Weak-minded individuals can be easily turned against you through gossip, rumors, or the influence of others. Some people don't form their own opinions. Instead, they let others do the thinking for them. Instead of coming to you for clarity, they listen to whispers, rumors, and outside influences. And once that seed of doubt is planted, they begin to see you through someone else's distorted lens, not their own. Think of it like a leaf in the wind. A strong tree stays rooted, no matter how hard the wind blows. But a weak leaf, it gets carried in any direction. People who are easily swayed by the opinions of others are the same way. They don't have a strong foundation of their own, so they allow external forces to dictate their perspective. And here's a hard truth. If someone can be manipulated into turning against you without ever questioning the truth, they were never truly reliable to begin with. This is where Stoic wisdom comes in. A mind that can be easily influenced was never truly yours to begin with. People of integrity seek truth. They don't blindly accept rumors. If someone can be turned against you so effortlessly, consider it a lesson, not a loss. I remember a time when a close friend suddenly became distant. No argument, no conflict, just a noticeable shift. At first, I thought they were just busy. But then, I heard from someone else that they had been told something false about me. And instead of coming to me for the truth, they simply believed it. At that moment, I had two choices: chase them down and defend myself. Let them reveal their true nature. I chose the second. I didn't try to explain myself. I didn't beg for their understanding. I just observed. And you know what happened? Months later, they reached out, realizing that the same person who lied about me had done the same to others. But by then, I had already moved on. Because the truth is, anyone who can be easily manipulated against you was never truly on your side. How to handle this? Don't waste time defending yourself. If someone is committed to misunderstanding you, nothing you say will change their mind. Let people reveal their loyalty. A real friend won't let gossip dictate their perception of you. Be grateful for clarity. If someone is weak enough to be swayed, they were never a solid presence in your life. At the end of the day, you don't lose real people. You only lose illusions. Let the weak-minded drift away and surround yourself with those who think for themselves. This is just the beginning. In the next part, we'll uncover the deeper psychological reasons why people pull away, including the hidden truth about why some people can't stand your growth. But before we continue, if you've found this valuable, hit the like button and subscribe for more powerful insights. Now, let's move forward. 4. You've stopped playing by their rules. Let's explore what happens when you stop tolerating manipulation. People who once relied on controlling you will begin to distance themselves. At first, it might seem confusing. Someone who was once deeply connected to you suddenly becomes indifferent. They stop initiating conversations, stop including you in plans, and their tone grows colder. But when you take a step back, you realize something. Their behavior didn't change because of something you did. It changed because they lost control over you. Some people remain in your life only as long as they can dictate your thoughts, actions, or responses. The moment you stop tolerating their guilt trips, their passive-aggressive remarks, or their attempts to steer your emotions, they pull away, not because they've outgrown you, but because without control, they have no interest. Think of it like a puppet with its strings cut. As long as the strings are intact, the puppeteer determines every movement. But what happens when the strings are severed? The puppet no longer moves the way they want. And rather than accepting this loss of control, the puppeteer simply walks away. That's exactly how manipulators operate. The moment you stop responding the way they expect, they retreat. Not because you changed, but because their influence over you disappeared. And this is where Stoic wisdom comes in. The price of independence is the loss of those who wanted you dependent. True independence means standing firm in your values, even when it costs you relationships. The people who truly respect you will adjust to your boundaries, but those who only valued their ability to control you, they'll disappear. And that's not a loss, it's liberation. I remember someone in my life who constantly tried to control how I reacted to situations. If I disagreed with them, they'd use guilt as a weapon. If I set a boundary, they'd accuse me of being selfish. For a long time, I played along, thinking, if I just keep the peace, things will improve. But one day I stopped. I chose not to justify myself, not to over-explain, just to stand firm. And their response? They vanished. No argument, no discussion, just distance. At first, it felt like a loss. But then I realized it wasn't. It was freedom. How to handle this? Recognize the pattern. If someone only sticks around when they can control you, it's not a genuine connection. Stop justifying yourself. The moment you stop explaining and start acting, they lose their influence. Let them walk away. If someone only valued you when they could manipulate you, their absence is confirmation that you're on the right path. At the end of the day, not everyone will celebrate your independence, but the ones who leave, they were only there for the control, not for you. Let them go, and stand firm in who you are. 5. They feel intimidated by your growth. Let's talk about something most people don't expect. The moment you start leveling up, some people will begin to pull away. Not because you've wronged them, but because your progress makes them uncomfortable. They were happy as long as you remained on their level, as long as you weren't a reminder of what they could achieve, but aren't willing to work for. And when they see you rising, instead of supporting you, they withdraw. Here's the truth. Some people would rather lose you than confront their own insecurities. They don't resent your success. They resent what it forces them to see in themselves. Think of it like climbing a mountain. You and a friend begin the journey together. At first, you walk side by side. The conversation is easy. The path feels shared. But then you start pushing harder, climbing higher, and suddenly they slow down. They complain about how difficult it is, suggest turning back, or worse. They begin resenting you for continuing upward, and then, out of nowhere, they stop. They say things like, "You've changed. You're not the same person anymore." But what they really mean is, "I can't keep up, and instead of growing with you, I'd rather stay behind." And this is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Do not shrink to make others comfortable. Grow, and let them decide if they'll keep up. Your growth is not an attack on anyone. It's a test of who is willing to rise with you. I had a close friend. Let's call him David. For years we were on the same path, same mindset, same habits. But then something shifted. I started focusing on self-improvement, reading more, setting bigger goals. At first, David seemed supportive. "That's awesome, man. Keep going." But as I kept progressing, his energy changed. He started making jokes. "Oh, so now you're too good for us." At first, I brushed it off. But then, the small digs became subtle resentment. "You're always so busy now. You think too much about this stuff." One day, I confronted him. "Hey, I feel like something's different between us. What's going on?" He shrugged. "You've just changed. I don't know, it's like you're trying too hard." That's when I realized I hadn't changed too much. He had stayed the same. And rather than feeling inspired, he felt intimidated. Rather than growing, he chose to step away. How to handle this? Don't shrink yourself. If someone can't handle your growth, that's their struggle, not yours. Pay attention to energy shifts. If someone starts pulling away when you level up, they were never truly rooting for you. Let them go with peace. Not everyone is meant to continue the journey with you. At the end of the day, growth comes with a cost. The loss of those who refuse to grow with you. But real friends, they won't just keep up. They'll push you even higher. What happens next? This is just the beginning. In the next section, we'll uncover even deeper truths, including what it really means when someone suddenly disappears. But before we continue, if this message resonates with you, show your support by hitting like and subscribing. Because the next part, it will completely change how you see the people who walked away. Let's continue. 6. You've exposed their true nature. Let's talk about what happens when you stop tolerating dishonesty, manipulation, or selfishness. Some people don't walk away because you changed. They walk away because you saw through them. There are those who thrive in deception. They rely on half-truths, hidden motives, and carefully crafted facades. But the moment you recognize their patterns, they have two choices: take accountability and change, or disappear to avoid being exposed. And most people, they choose to leave, not because you pushed them away, but because they can't exist in a space where their lies no longer work. You didn't lose them. They lost the ability to manipulate you. Think of it like turning on a light in a dark room. At first, everything seems fine, but once the light switches on, you start to see the dust, the cracks, the hidden mess that was once masked in darkness. And now, you can't unsee it. That's exactly what happens when you recognize someone's true nature. The moment the truth is exposed, those who relied on shadows can't stand the light. They'll say, "You've changed." But what they really mean is, "You stopped letting me take advantage of you." And this is where Stoic wisdom comes in. The truth only offends those who live in lies. A person who is honest, accountable, and sincere has nothing to fear from the truth. But those who thrive on deception, they'll resent it because it forces them to face themselves. I remember someone in my life who always played the victim. Every conflict, every problem, it was never their fault. And for a long time I believed them. I defended them, gave them the benefit of the doubt. But then the inconsistencies started appearing. Small contradictions, moments where their mask slipped. So one day I did something different. I stopped blindly accepting their excuses. I started asking direct questions. Their response? Instant defensiveness. Suddenly, I was the problem. "You're overanalyzing. You're not the same person anymore." And then, they disappeared. Not a conversation, not an argument, Just silence. Because once I stopped playing along, they had nothing left to gain. How to handle this? Don't regret seeing the truth. It may be uncomfortable, but it's better than living in an illusion. Let them leave. If someone runs the moment their manipulation stops working, they were never genuine in the first place. Stand firm in your integrity. The right people will value honesty. The wrong ones will run from it. At the end of the day, the truth doesn't destroy real relationships. It only destroys the false ones. So let those who relied on deception disappear, because you're better off without them. 7. It's a blessing in disguise. Let's talk about something that feels like rejection at first, but is actually a gift. When people start ignoring you, it stings. It makes you question what went wrong. It can even make you feel like you weren't good enough. But here's the reality. Being ignored is not a loss. It's a filter. People who suddenly stop acknowledging you, who distance themselves without explanation, are simply revealing something important. They were never truly meant to stay. And instead of seeing this as something to grieve, what if you saw it for what it really is? A blessing in disguise. Think of it like a tree shedding its leaves. In autumn, the leaves fall away. Does the tree mourn them? Number, because it understands that in order for new, stronger growth to come in the spring, the old must be let go. That's exactly how life works. Some people are seasonal. They were never meant to grow with you long term. So when they walk away, they're actually making space for the right people to enter your life. And this is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Do not grieve those who walked away. Be grateful they revealed themselves. Because if someone can so easily ignore your presence, it means they never truly valued it. And that's not a loss. That's clarity. I once had a friend who was always around, until they weren't. No argument, no fight, just silence. At first, I was confused. Had I done something wrong? I considered reaching out, trying to fix something I didn't even understand. But then, I made a choice. I didn't chase. Days turned into weeks. And that's when it hit me. I had always been the one keeping the friendship alive. The moment I stopped putting in effort, they didn't even notice. And that's when I realized I hadn't lost a real friend. I had lost the illusion of one. That's silence. It was the answer I never knew I needed. How to handle this? Shift your mindset. Being ignored isn't a reflection of your worth. It's a revelation of theirs. Don't chase those who leave. If their absence comes so easily, their presence was never real. Focus on those who stay. Real connections don't require constant proving. They just exist. At the end of the day, silence is not something to fear. It's something to be grateful for. Because the ones who ignore you, they just made room for the ones who truly see you. Final thoughts. If you've watched this far, you already understand. Being ignored isn't a punishment, it's a lesson. People reveal their true nature through their actions. And when someone suddenly distances themselves, it's not a reflection of you, it's a reflection of them. So the next time someone pulls away, remember, they might be testing your reaction. They might have only been there for what you provided. They could be easily influenced by others. They may have lost control over you. Your growth might be intimidating to them. You may have exposed their true nature, or maybe it's simply time for them to go. But no matter why it happens, one thing is certain: you don't need to chase. You don't need to beg for answers. And you definitely don't need to shrink yourself just to keep people around. Because those who truly belong in your life, they won't leave. And those who do, they were never meant to stay. If this resonated with you, drop a comment saying thank God and hit the like button. Your support means the world. And it motivates me to keep creating more content that inspires, empowers, and challenges the way we think. So if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, because there's more to come. Thank you for being here. And remember, your light is not a burden. Let it shine.